Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Traumatized the Podcast. Well, I have an announcement to make. This episode, the 40th episode of this third season, combining the two podcasts that I have done, is going to be the final episode of this season. And potentially, I haven't decided yet, it may be the final episode, period. I've been deciding and trying to come up with, a reason or some way of justifying continuing right now. But to put it bluntly, I'm at a point in my life where I don't have a lot to talk about. And everybody gets to a point where they need to move forward and try to live their life. And well, this is mine. So I'm going to record this episode and then I'm going to take a break. I haven't decided how long it's going to be, but I may or may not come back in the near future, maybe in a different capacity, but I won't know until that time comes. But in the meantime, here is the 40th episode of this season of Traumatized. The courageous journey deciding to move forward from a traumatic past. Deciding to move forward from a traumatic past is a monumental endeavor that demands immense courage, resilience, and self-awareness. Trauma, in its myriad forms, inflicts profound emotional wounds that permeate every aspect of an individual's life, shaping their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Each person's journey toward healing is uniquely nuanced, influenced by their personal experiences, coping mechanisms, and the support systems they have access to. In this essay, we embark on a comprehensive exploration of this journey, delving into its multifaceted challenges, remarkable triumphs, and the enduring transformations it catalyzes. Part 1. Understanding the impact of trauma. Trauma, whether experienced in childhood or adulthood, has profound and multifaceted effects on survivors' physical, emotional, and psychological well-being. It is essential to recognize that trauma is not solely defined by specific events, but encompasses a wide range of experiences, including abuse, neglect, violence, and loss. These experiences can have enduring repercussions that shape survivors' beliefs, behaviors, and relationships, often manifesting in complex symptoms such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. Consider the case of Rachel, a survivor of childhood abuse who grapples with debilitating flashbacks, nightmares, and hypervigilance as a result of her traumatic experiences. Despite her efforts to suppress or numb her emotions, the impact of trauma permeates every aspect of Rachel's life, affecting her ability to trust others, form healthy attachments, and regulate her emotions. Furthermore, trauma has left indelible imprints on Rachel's sense of self-worth and identity, leading to feelings of shame, self-blame, and worthlessness. To truly understand the impact of trauma, it is essential to recognize its pervasive and long-lasting effects on survivors' lives. Trauma alters the brain's neurobiology, affecting areas responsible for stress regulation, emotional processing, and memory consolidation. This can result in a range of cognitive and emotional difficulties, including difficulty concentrating, heightened arousal, and emotional numbing. Moreover, trauma can disrupt survivors' sense of safety and security, leaving them hypervigilant and mistrustful of others, even in seemingly benign situations. Additionally, trauma often intersects with other forms of adversity, such as poverty, racism, and discrimination, exacerbating its impact and perpetuating cycles of violence and inequality. For survivors from marginalized communities, the effects of trauma may be compounded by systemic barriers to accessing resources and support, further deepening their sense of isolation and vulnerability. Furthermore, trauma is not only an individual experience, but also a collective one that reverberates across generations and communities. Historical traumas such as colonization, slavery, and genocide continue to shape the experiences of marginalized communities today, perpetuating cycles of intergenerational trauma and systemic injustice. By understanding the interconnectedness of individual and collective trauma, we can cultivate greater empathy, understanding, and solidarity with survivors and work toward creating trauma-informed systems of care and support. In conclusion, understanding the impact of trauma requires a nuanced and compassionate approach that acknowledges its complex and far-reaching effects on survivors' lives. By recognizing trauma as a multidimensional phenomenon that intersects with other forms of adversity and systemic injustice, we can create inclusive and trauma-informed spaces that prioritize healing, resilience, and empowerment for all survivors. As we continue to raise awareness about the impact of trauma, we also commit to dismantling the systems of oppression and inequality that perpetuate cycles of violence and injustice, ensuring that every individual has access to the resources, support, and dignity they deserve. 2. The cycle of trauma and its effects. Trauma often perpetuates a vicious cycle of reactivity and avoidance, wherein survivors oscillate between hypervigilance and emotional numbing as coping mechanisms to navigate the aftermath of their experiences. This cycle is characterized by a pattern of heightened arousal, intrusive memories, and avoidance behaviors that serve to protect survivors from the overwhelming pain and distress associated with their trauma. Consider the case of David, a survivor of combat trauma who experiences intense flashbacks, nightmares, and hyperarousal symptoms as a result of his experiences in the military. Despite his efforts to avoid triggers and suppress his emotions, David finds himself caught in a cycle of reactivity and avoidance, wherein his symptoms intensify in response to stressors, leading to further withdrawal and isolation. This cycle perpetuates a sense of helplessness and despair, exacerbating David's symptoms and hindering his ability to engage in meaningful relationships and activities. To understand the cycle of trauma and its effects, it is essential to recognize the underlying mechanisms that drive survivors' behaviors and coping strategies. Trauma triggers activate the brain's fear response system, leading to a cascade of physiological and psychological reactions designed to protect the individual from perceived threats. These reactions can include heightened arousal, dissociation, and emotional numbing, which serve to minimize the overwhelming distress associated with traumatic memories and stimuli. Additionally, the cycle of trauma often intersects with other mental health conditions, such as depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, further complicating survivors' experiences and exacerbating their symptoms. For example, survivors may turn to substance abuse as a means of self-medication to numb painful emotions or escape intrusive memories, inadvertently reinforcing maladaptive coping strategies and perpetuating the cycle of trauma. Furthermore, the cycle of trauma can have profound effects on survivors' relationships, leading to patterns of avoidance, mistrust, and emotional detachment that strain interpersonal connections and hinder intimacy. Survivors may struggle to communicate their needs and emotions, fear rejection or judgment from others, and may withdraw or lash out in response to perceived threats or triggers. This can create a cycle of relational conflict and disconnection that further exacerbates survivors' feelings of isolation and alienation. In conclusion, the cycle of trauma is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that profoundly impacts survivors' lives, relationships, and well-being. By understanding the underlying mechanisms that drive this cycle and its effects, we can cultivate greater empathy, understanding, and support for survivors as they navigate their healing journey. As we continue to raise awareness about the cycle of trauma, may we also commit to creating trauma-informed systems of care and support that prioritize healing, resilience, and empowerment for all survivors. 3. The role of support systems in healing. Support systems serve as lifelines for survivors, providing validation, empathy, and encouragement on their journey toward healing. Consider the case of Maria, a survivor of sexual assault who finds solace in the unwavering support of her friends and family. Maria's loved ones create a safe space for her to express her emotions and process her experiences, empowering her to confront her trauma and embark on the path to healing. How do Maria's support networks bolster her resilience, sense of agency, and capacity to cope with adversity? Are there specific ways in which her loved ones validate her experiences and provide tangible support? Moreover, community support groups offer survivors a sense of belonging and camaraderie as they connect with others who share similar experiences. These shared narratives of trauma foster solidarity and reduce feelings of isolation and shame, providing survivors with a platform to share their stories and seek validation. How do these support groups empower survivors to reclaim their agency, rewrite their narratives, and cultivate a sense of belonging? Additionally, how do online support communities provide survivors with a safe haven to connect anonymously, seek guidance, and access resources without fear of judgment or stigma? 4. The courage to seek help. Seeking help is a pivotal and transformative step towards healing from trauma, but it can also be fraught with challenges and apprehensions. Survivors often grapple with a complex array of emotions, including fear, shame, and vulnerability, which can hinder their willingness to reach out for support. Moreover, societal attitudes toward trauma and mental health stigma may exacerbate these fears, perpetuating a culture of silence and shame that discourages survivors from seeking the help they desperately need. Consider the case of Michael, a survivor of childhood abuse who wrestles with intense feelings of shame and self-doubt. Despite his inner turmoil, Michael summons the courage to reach out to a therapist for help, recognizing that he cannot navigate his healing journey alone. However, the process of seeking help is fraught with uncertainty and trepidation, as Michael fears judgment, rejection, or further victimization if he were to disclose his trauma to others. To overcome these barriers, survivors like Michael must cultivate courage, resilience, and self-advocacy, recognizing that their healing journey is a testament to their strength and resilience. This involves acknowledging the validity of their experiences, honoring their emotions, and embracing vulnerability as a pathway to growth and healing. Through therapy, survivors learn to confront their fears and self-limiting beliefs, empowering them to reclaim agency over their lives and rewrite the narratives of their trauma. Additionally, survivors seek out supportive communities and allies who validate their experiences, offer empathy, and provide a safe space for them to share their stories without fear of judgment or stigma. Peer support groups, online forums, and survivor-led organizations serve as lifelines for survivors, fostering a sense of belonging and solidarity that counteracts feelings of isolation and shame. Furthermore, survivors challenge societal attitudes toward trauma and mental health stigma by speaking out against the pervasive myths and misconceptions that perpetuate silence and shame. Through advocacy, education, and storytelling, survivors raise awareness about the impact of trauma and the importance of creating trauma-informed communities that prioritize empathy, compassion, and support. By sharing their stories courageously and authentically, survivors inspire others to seek help, break free from the chains of silence and stigma, and embark on their journey toward healing and renewal. In conclusion, the courage to seek help is a profound and transformative act of self-compassion and resilience for survivors of trauma. By confronting their fears, embracing vulnerability, and reaching out for support, survivors reclaim their agency, resilience, and inherent worthiness. As we continue to destigmatize conversations around trauma and mental health, may we create inclusive and supportive spaces where survivors feel validated, empowered, and emboldened to seek help and embark on their journey toward healing and renewal. 5. Overcoming internalized stigma and shame. Beyond societal barriers, survivors often internalize feelings of stigma and shame, which can hinder their healing journey. For instance, consider the case of Emily, who survived childhood abuse but struggles with feelings of self-blame and inadequacy. Emily's internalized stigma prevents her from seeking help, as she fears being judged or labeled as broken by others. How can survivors like Emily overcome internalized stigma and shame, and what role do self-compassion and self-acceptance play in this process? Are there specific therapeutic techniques or self-care practices that can help survivors cultivate self-compassion and challenge self-defeating beliefs? Number 6, embracing resilience and transformation. Despite the profound challenges they face, survivors possess immense resilience and strength, which can catalyze transformative growth and healing. Consider the case of David, who survived a traumatic car accident and subsequent PTSD, but emerged from the experience with newfound resilience and purpose. David's journey towards healing involved confronting his trauma, seeking professional help, and cultivating self-care practices that nourished his mind, body, and spirit. How can survivors like David harness their resilience to navigate their healing journey and forge a path toward transformation? Are there specific resilience building exercises or therapeutic modalities that can help survivors cultivate resilience and foster post-traumatic growth? Number 7, cultivating self-compassion and self-care. Central to the process of healing from trauma is the cultivation of self-compassion and self-care practices that nurture survivors' physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. These practices serve as anchors of stability amidst the tumult of trauma, providing survivors with essential tools to navigate their healing journey with grace and resilience. Consider the case of Lily, a survivor of intimate partner violence who grapples with deep-seated feelings of guilt and self-blame. Through her journey of healing, Lily learns to cultivate self-compassion by treating herself with the same kindness and understanding she would offer to a loved one in distress. She practices affirmations and mantras that affirm her worthiness and inherent value, gradually dismantling the internal beliefs that perpetuate her sense of unworthiness. In addition to self-compassion, survivors like Lily engage in a range of self-care practices that prioritize their physical and emotional well-being. This may include activities such as mindfulness, meditation, yoga, journaling, or spending time in nature, each offering a sanctuary of solace and renewal in the midst of adversity. By carving out sacred spaces for self-reflection and introspection, survivors replenish their reserves of resilience and fortitude, enabling them to confront their trauma with greater equanimity and self-assurance. Furthermore, self-care encompasses the cultivation of healthy boundaries and the practice of assertiveness in interpersonal relationships. Survivors learn to advocate for their needs, assert their boundaries, and prioritize their own well-being without guilt or apology. This may involve saying no to activities or commitments that drain their energy, setting limits on interactions with toxic individuals, and surrounding themselves with supportive and affirming relationships that uplift and nourish their spirit. Moreover, self-care extends beyond individual practices to encompass collective acts of care and solidarity within communities of survivors. Through mutual support networks, peer mentorship programs, and group therapy sessions, survivors create spaces of shared understanding and empathy where they can draw strength from one another's experiences and insights. These communities of care foster a sense of belonging and camaraderie, affirming survivors' worthiness of love, acceptance, and support. In conclusion, cultivating self-compassion and self-care is an essential aspect of the healing journey for survivors of trauma. By nurturing themselves with kindness, compassion, and self-awareness, survivors like Lily reclaim agency over their lives and forge a path towards wholeness and healing. As we continue to prioritize self-care as a fundamental aspect of trauma recovery, may we also create spaces of compassion and support where survivors can thrive, flourish, and reclaim their inherent worthiness. 8. Redefining identity and narrative. Trauma often fractures survivors' sense of identity and disrupts their life narratives, leaving them feeling fragmented and disconnected from themselves. Consider the case of Michael, a survivor of childhood neglect who struggles to reconcile his past with his present identity. Through therapy and creative expression, Michael begins to rewrite his narrative, reclaiming agency over his story and embracing a more empowered sense of self. How do survivors like Michael redefine their identity and narrative, reclaiming ownership of their past and envisioning a future filled with hope and possibility? Are there specific therapeutic techniques or narrative interventions that can help survivors reconstruct their sense of identity and meaning? 9. Advocacy and social change. Many survivors of trauma become catalysts for social change, channeling their experiences into advocacy efforts aimed at raising awareness, promoting healing, and driving systemic reforms. These individuals courageously speak out against injustice, leveraging their voices to amplify the stories of survivors and advocate for policies that prioritize trauma-informed care and support. Consider the case of Sarah, a survivor of sexual assault who transforms her pain into purpose by becoming a vocal advocate for survivors' rights. Through her advocacy work, Sarah spearheads initiatives to reform legislation surrounding sexual violence, advocating for comprehensive support services for survivors and stricter penalties for perpetrators. By sharing her story in public forums, participating in awareness campaigns, and lobbying policymakers, Sarah empowers other survivors to find their voices and demand accountability. Additionally, survivors like Sarah engage in grassroots movements and community organizing to affect change at the local level. They collaborate with like-minded individuals and organizations to create support networks, organize events, and develop resources that address the unique needs of survivors in their communities. Whether through hosting survivor-led workshops, organizing fundraising events for trauma-informed organizations, or facilitating peer support groups, these advocates play a pivotal role in fostering healing, resilience, and social change. Furthermore, advocacy extends beyond legislative reforms to encompass broader cultural and societal shifts in attitudes towards trauma and mental health. Survivors challenge harmful stereotypes and misconceptions surrounding trauma, educating the public about the complexities of survivorship and the importance of trauma-informed care. Through storytelling, art, and media representation, they humanize the experiences of survivors, fostering empathy, understanding, and solidarity among diverse audiences. In conclusion, advocacy and social change are integral components of the healing journey for survivors of trauma. By harnessing their experiences, resilience, and voices, survivors like Sarah become powerful agents of change, driving progress toward a more compassionate, supportive, and trauma-informed society. As we continue to uplift and amplify the voices of survivors, may we also commit to dismantling the systems of oppression and injustice that perpetuate cycles of trauma, ensuring that every individual has access to the resources, support, and dignity they deserve. 10. The ongoing journey of healing. Healing from trauma is not a linear process, but rather an ongoing journey marked by resilience, introspection, and growth. Survivors like Alex, who have experienced war trauma and survivor's guilt, understand firsthand the complexities of this journey. Despite the profound challenges they face, survivors remain committed to their healing journey, seeking support from therapists, support groups, and holistic healing modalities. On this journey, survivors encounter both victories and setbacks, navigating the highs and lows of emotional and psychological terrain. There are moments of profound self-discovery where survivors unearth hidden reservoirs of strength and resilience within themselves. Through therapy sessions, survivors like Alex confront their trauma head-on, delving into painful memories and emotions in pursuit of healing and resolution. However, the healing journey is not without its challenges. Survivors may experience triggers, flashbacks, and intrusive memories that threaten to derail their progress. These moments of distress serve as potent reminders of the trauma they have endured, testing their resilience and resolve. In these moments, survivors rely on coping strategies learned in therapy, such as grounding techniques and mindfulness practices, to navigate the storm of emotions and regain a sense of equilibrium. Moreover, survivors often grapple with complex emotions such as anger, guilt, and shame as they come to terms with their past experiences. They may wrestle with questions of self-worth and identity, struggling to reconcile the person they were before the trauma with the person they have become. Through introspection and self-reflection, survivors gradually make peace with their past and cultivate a sense of acceptance and self-compassion. Despite the challenges, survivors like Alex persevere, drawing strength from their support networks and inner resilience. They recognize that healing is not a destination, but a continual process of growth and self-discovery. With each step forward, survivors reclaim agency over their lives and rewrite the narrative of their trauma, transforming it from a source of pain into a catalyst for growth and renewal. In conclusion, the ongoing journey of healing is a testament to the resilience and strength of survivors. As they navigate the complexities of trauma recovery, survivors like Alex embody courage, perseverance, and hope. By embracing the journey with empathy, understanding, and solidarity, we can create a supportive environment where survivors feel validated, empowered, and emboldened to continue their pursuit of healing and renewal. Now, in conclusion, deciding to move forward from a traumatic past is a courageous and transformative journey that demands unwavering resilience, introspection, and support. As survivors navigate the intricate terrain of healing, they often encounter moments of profound self-discovery, empowerment, and growth. It is essential to recognize that healing is not a destination, but a continual process of evolution and self-reclamation. Furthermore, fostering a culture of empathy, understanding, and validation is crucial in supporting survivors on their journey toward healing. By creating safe and inclusive spaces for survivors to share their stories, seek support, and advocate for change, we can collectively dismantle the barriers that perpetuate silence, stigma, and shame surrounding trauma. In conclusion, the journey of deciding to move forward from a traumatic past is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It is a journey marked by courage, vulnerability, and the unwavering pursuit of healing and wholeness. As we continue to uplift and empower survivors, may we also cultivate a society that embraces empathy, compassion, and solidarity, ensuring that every voice is heard, every story is honored, and every individual is supported on their path toward healing and renewal. All right. That is it. I created that entire episode on my own. It is my voice. It's how I feel. And I hope that everyone out there who either is listening to this episode on its release date, February 17th, 2024, or in a future date, sometime, who knows when, hopefully you feel the same way and that you make great leaps and bounds to becoming someone who has healed from your trauma, and that you can begin to live a life that feels normal, where you are happy, safe, and you are encouraged to be yourself, and you stand up for your rights as a person, as a human being. Simple as that. All right, everybody. Before I end, I'd just like to thank everyone who has listened to my episodes, not just for this show, Traumatized, but also on my previous show, Living with ADHD and CPTSD. As I said at the beginning, I am going to take I guess you could say, an indefinite break. It could very well be a permanent ending to my show, but that decision probably won't come for some time. I have decided to focus more on my life and the future that it holds and see where it goes. If you have any questions, if you would like to chat, if there's something that you're curious about, you can always contact me. My social media and my email and my website will still be on. I am not going to close those down. You can contact me on Twitter, on Mastodon, on Blue Sky, on Threads. Just have to look for a Traumatized podcast. My website, which is www.traumatizedpodcast2023.link. Then my show is also on YouTube. Pretty straightforward. I hope you enjoyed my episodes. I put a lot of effort and a lot of time into creating these. I did not have any help, and it's all me. I would definitely like to thank all those people in the 3 years that I've been making my shows who came on as guests, both those who are well known and those who are not well known. It was a lot of fun discussing things like trauma, CPTSD, ADHD, and other things with people. And I really enjoyed making this show. My whole goal when it came to this podcast was to help others, to give them a voice so that they can realize and feel that they are not alone in this battle with their trauma. It's a hard battle ahead of them, and they need all the voices and all the help that they can get along this journey towards healing. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Perhaps I'll be back someday. All right. Bye for now.